Tallarico, and this is Perspectives from the Sky. Usually we're every other week, and I kind of changed that timing this week because of the eclipse that came yesterday, and I want to do it in 2 weeks again, the radio show, as the second eclipse in Sagittarius will arrive. This is probably not the right show for you to tune in on if you have not been feeling some intensity over the last couple of days, because that eclipse, Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Taurus, lunar eclipse, and all lunar eclipses come from a full moon. All solar eclipses come with a new moon. So we've got this full moon. And it's always good to look and see what happened on the day out in the world to get a sense of what's coming further. Now, all the time when there's the eclipses, there's not like the big event that happens on the day itself. But usually there's clues around it that tell you this is what's coming. And the latter is true. I'm going to talk about those. But also, there actually were some events actually on the day itself. So 27 degrees of Scorpio, 27 degrees of Taurus is this full moon. And like I wrote in my column, my blog last week, there's going to be Jupiter, Mars are both going to be in the latter degrees of fixed signs, which will kick off even more new events. Again, you can't say this is the event that's going to happen at a given day, but you can say this is the trend that I'm seeing on that given day, and then you know what direction things are going to take. What's interesting about this one is it's connected to the eclipse season in 2017. There was a total solar eclipse in Leo in 2017, and one of the big events that happened during that eclipse season was the racial riots that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. And there was a statue being taken down, I believe, Confederate type statue. And so there were the white supremacist people that were out. And then we had the people on the other side, like Antifa, for instance, that was out there protesting. And it got pretty violent. In fact, there was a woman who got run over and died and got killed. The point I'm trying to make is that eclipse season had culture war. That's when we really first became aware. Trump had just gotten into power as president in January of 2017. And then by August, been in about 7-8 months, and this eclipse season started up. And 28 degrees of Leo was the total solar eclipse. So interesting that we've got almost 28 degrees with the eclipse that's now. So that part of the zodiac has got energy to it. The eclipse today, or yesterday, 27 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, real close to that same spot. And the culture war is the one event, something that is triggering the culture war, happened yesterday. And that was this man, teenager, I guess at the time, even now, named Rittenhouse. He, Kenosha had some race issues. There was a man who unfairly was bullied by the police. And he ended up being paralyzed, like he still is. He's paralyzed, I guess, from the waist down. And so there was a lot of rioting in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And this is not too long ago. I think it was like last year. And so there was this rioting that was happening there. This guy, Rittenhouse, coming from Illinois, he lived in Illinois, crossed the border into Wisconsin and brought a rifle with him. And, the stories are different, each person that you listen to, but because that's the way it is nowadays with media and with other things. It's like everybody's spinning the truth, so it's hard to know what the truth is. But what came out in court is that he ended up killing Rittenhauser. Two people, one got injured. They ended up both being white, by the way. And now there's proof that he was threatened, and then he reacted to that threat. But nevertheless, the society out there somehow doesn't look deeper than that. Not as far as being guilty and innocent and going to jail. It doesn't look deeper to say this is something wrong here. A teenager crosses the border with a rifle in order to pitch in to what's going on there. And he had like white supremacist affiliations, I believe. And so he ends up shooting and killing two people, wounding a third one. He should have never been there. There must be some kind of law. You can't just come in with a rifle when there's a riot going on and you're only 17 or 18 years old. Sure, somebody got killed. That's when you bring rifles and guns around, you know, somebody taps you on the shoulder and gives you a dirty look, you could react by shooting them. So the point I'm trying to make is, there it is again, culture war. This tells us this is really important now. 2017, we had it. We've got it now. We've got a lot of culture war stuff happening, especially when Trump was president. And it all led up to that just before he left office, January 2021, just this last year. There was a storming of the Capitol. And they were yelling, hang Pence. Subsequent to that, the ex-president doesn't talk bad about any of what happened at the Capitol that day. Downplays it like it's no big deal. They stormed the Capitol of our United States. How can that be okay? And they trashed everybody's offices and threatened to kill people. All the representatives, the Congress people, and the Senate, they had to leave, go into some protected place because of the fear they had of these people being there. Culture war is a problem on both sides. I don't want to just say that it's the people on the right who are doing it, causing it. But a lot of what we see that they're a part of or that they've done really looks pretty bad to even people who are very neutral, don't have any political affiliation, don't lean heavily left or right. I mean, it's not just about that. It's about what's right and what's wrong. Storming that Capitol, how can that be right? And how can a president have actually endorsed it? How can a president not be that upset, because he wasn't, around threats to his vice president, who didn't come through for him because that vice president was supposed to make the vote changed. You know, when the delegates all go to vote after they're representing the people that voted. But he thought that Pence could go in there and kind of change the results, and was very angry at him for not changing those results, because his excuse was it was an unfair election. You know how often people have said it's an unfair election for lots of offices, including president? All of them. Somebody screamed, it's not fair. But you don't overthrow the government, and you don't support people that are white supremacists or Nazis. No matter what side of the fence you're on, you can't possibly support that. So that's what happened on the day. But here's some other things happening on that day. This is a lot of not good stuff, but you know where I'm coming from, right? You know, I know that these things are likely going to happen, but they're going to open portals and doorways into the wholeness and the unity of this new age that we're moving into. Moves into a new paradigm of truth and love, as opposed to us versus them, as opposed to I'm better than you, as opposed to I'm making more money than you. Those are all old paradigm ways of being. I want to talk about some of the new paradigm ways in just a minute, but let's just keep going by what was going on around the time of that eclipse. So not on the day, but in most of these cases I'm going to mention maybe a week prior or so, these events have been happening. Russia has now put 90,000 troops on the border between Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine leans way toward the Western alliance, right, toward Europe, the United States, and NATO. They want to become a member of. I'm sure NATO would like them to become a number two, and I'm sure Russia does not want that to happen. Because Russia actually wants to go in and take over Ukraine. It still has a feeling it belongs to it. Similar to China. China's been threatening lately to go into Taiwan, saying Taiwan belongs to me. And it does have any or no right to have its independence, especially when that independence finds them making closer and closer relationship with the Western world. So, of course, Putin did not want that. Now we got the giant China with Taiwan. They're going to invade, but also they're kind of bullying people in the South China Sea, Vietnam, the Philippines, and saying this is our land. So China's getting much more aggressive than they've been since I've been alive, which is only now 322 years. No, I'm sorry, 321 years I've been alive. I didn't say that because I'm half joking and I really believe it. No, I'm not 321 years, but it feels like that sometimes, especially with all going on in the world. So what else has been happening? Israel and the USA have both been saying, I heard them before do this years ago, and I know what happens when they're doing this. They're saying now Iran will have a bomb within the next few months. It said that years ago. Now it's saying it's going to happen. This is their way of saying, we are threatening Iran. Now, whether they go in or not, I think Israel would like to. I think the United States is reluctant to, but that's quite a possibility too. Can you see? Rome was an empire. The United States and the Western world are an empire. And that empire decayed from the inside and from the outside. The values were worse. Corruption was rampant with their senators and their political people. And they decayed from the inside, but they also had marauders, and they were attacked from the outside too. With the Civil War we have brewing, and with the lack of values that have been more and more evident, we on the inside, as Americans, are in a country that is also in many ways decaying. A lot of corruption, a lot of everything goes back to money with lobbyists and things like that. Politicians can't be trusted that their vote represents the people, because oftentimes it represents the corporation or a big money interest somewhere. And so that's some of the decay that's happening on the inside. On the outside. Now, keep in mind that underneath it all, what I believe is in transformation. Like, okay, so we're not an empire anymore, but now we are a country, a regular country, returning to our original values from 1776. That's the possibility with the transformation. But I think you can see, with the United States being the superpower empire, it's likely not going to be a graceful movement to move to a world of equality of nations and with diversity within unity, which is what we are in the age of Aquarius and what we are moving toward. No matter what you see flashing before your eyes over this eclipse season and beyond, that's where we're moving. And as long as I can speak and think, I'll be reminding you of that as things happen event-wise out in our world. How about personal lives, transformation there? It's for us to enter consciousness that's more attuned to the age of Aquarius, as opposed to the old paradigm. Some of the things that are needing to change, in my estimation, and that are changing, not just need to be changed. The biggest one is us versus them. And I always bring this out. Okay, doing it again, Leo. I always bring this out. My favorite message about the union of the opposites. Union of the opposites, not us versus them. Yes, people have arguments. They have disagreements. There's a pulling away from one another that happens sometimes. Sometimes there's the threat of male and female being disconnected, which it feels like a lot lately. The whole idea of the feminine, the masculine seem very at odds with one another, but that's not what they're meant to be. Oh, there it is over my shoulder, too. There's a yin yang sign, signal up there. And so, what we want is wholeness, holding the opposites together on this plane of existence. I realize other planes of existence, the whole duality thing doesn't even happen, isn't valid. But here, for the most part, it is. But the more we move toward the unity of the opposites, the better we are. Unity in the past might have meant everybody's the same. Unity now means we're different, but we are connected and together. And that's where diversity within unity comes from. It's the acceptance of the difference in individuality of each person, each entity. But within that, there's the capability of becoming one. A couple examples. In our bodies, we have all these different organs. They come together to make us alive. Right? There's an orchestra. Each instrument is very distinctly what it is. And of course, the instruments keep their integrity of what they are. Horn doesn't want to become a clarinet. But within that, the beautiful music is played. Diversity, all that individuality into unity, the beautiful piece in the orchestra. So we do know that diversity within unity happens, but we have strayed so far from it here. We strayed so far from it because we no longer, as much as we used to, be a part of the natural laws. When Eve ate that apple, metaphorically speaking, it was leaving of the Garden of Eden. It was leaving like a certain peaceful place where everything came together rightly. So it wasn't evil that was going on when they left the Garden of Eden. It was like they were at the Garden of Eden long enough. It was time to grow. And when it's time to grow, you move out into new territory, into new places, new people. And as you're doing that, you still miss the garden, but you get used to it and you realize that for growth and transformation, you have to leave. You have to leave that place. And we're leaving the place of the old paradigm and moving into a new place. And of course, that can be scary sometimes. It can be stressful sometimes. But at the same time, as we're moving toward all this, I know many of you can, feel sometimes really wonderful because you're getting it, that this new world is right there. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, there are forces in the world, in the universe, that want you to get into fear and hatred. And as you get into those, you become separate from what the potential in consciousness is for this new world that we're moving into. Fear will take you away from it. I'm not talking about a little bit of fear. I walk out the door right now and there's a coyote going to stare me in the eyes and just about to leap on me. Oh, I'm scared. Very scared. But I'm not going to go back in the house later and keep thinking about it, for days and days and days and start feeling a revenge and the hatred I want to get on those coyotes for threatening me. You know what I mean? So we need to leave that kind of fear and hatred behind if we're going to move forward. I wanted to throw in that also the stock market. Remember, this is diversity within the empire. It's made up of the military and the economy, military-industrial complex. Pluto in the second house of the United States represents that, in my estimation, quite a bit. And Pluto's got its first return to itself after about 250 years. That kind of started this 2021, but gets more full in 2022. And so there's a challenge to what that military-industrial complex has become. And it's become an empire. So yes, it's going to get chipped away as we have a Pluto return. It already is. It already is. What are some of the things that you can do to keep yourself in the kind of consciousness that will help you to move into the age of Aquarius? And I'm going to bring Deborah wants to come on in a little while. I want Deborah to come on, and we're going to talk about some of these things. She's going to bring with her a really wonderful guided meditation for you. But for now, here's some other things that are going to need to be changed in consciousness. Us versus them, we just started that. Perpetrator victim, that's kind of a big one. It's like somehow we get programmed into believing that that's the way people are with one another, like predator and victim. And there's a lot of stories in people's minds about men being the perpetrator, women being the victims. In a lot of cases, that does happen. But that's not the essence of male and female. That's toxic male, actually toxic male and female together, create those kind of circumstances. So you want to get the story out of your head of perpetrator and victim. If something happens to you and it's bad, yeah, you've been victimized, but you don't need to sink into a story, locked in ego story, that you not were victimized, but that you are a victim. That's something we can all work on. A really important one is, another important one is predator-prey. Now, I know out in the world of nature, we have plenty of creatures that are predators and plenty that turn out to be prey. But we, as a human family, are not just what is primal. We develop wonderful art, beautiful music. We feel love. We share love. There's a lot of bad things to say about us. Remember, these are the things that we as a species are about also, besides building nuclear bombs, which is a reflection of the us versus them, by the way. That's taken to the nth degree. So predator-prey is another one. Most people from that old paradigm, they identify on a deep level with one or the other. You're not either, unless you choose to be. Another one is superior-inferior. This is a big one too, that needs to be let go of if we're going to move into this new age consciousness. Okay, I'm playing baseball with someone. I win. Yay, you lost the game. Football, hey, I won. You lost the game. I'm better than you at that game. Just at that game. It doesn't make you, in essence, better or worse what you did on the field. In the game, you lost and didn't do as well as someone else. But in life, we all have a role to play, and all of those roles are good, not bad. That's who we are. We're different than one another, but it's not about you being bad and me being good, or vice versa. And it's certainly not about me being better and you being worse. Oh, well, you are a garbage truck person, there's garbage off the trucks, and I am a priest. No battle here, who's better, right? You deliver garbage, I'm a priest. No, nobody's better. Nobody's better. That's wonderful that we have a priest, as long as it's a good one who's connected to spirit. Wonderful thing. You're not better. You're not worse. Each of you does what it is that you came here to do. We need the garbage taken care of. We need someone to help us with spirituality. Neither person is better than the other. That's so important with this change from one consciousness to another. You get in touch with that inside yourself, that you think you're better. And you know what? That you think you're worse, you're also adding to the problem. You need to get it together and look at who you really are authentically, not what people have conditioned you to believe, not what you have told yourself in your stories that you are. You see what I mean? This is not easy because it's so conditioned in us about the superior inferior. And it's so important that we move beyond it. Okay, what are some other things that we need in our consciousness? So hate, it goes along with fear. We certainly don't need that. Living in the now more, not all the time. You have to make plans for the future. But as much as you can be present now, you can have relationships with people where you're both vulnerable enough to communicate because you're here with them. You're listening to them. They're listening to you. Extremely important. I do a lot of couples counseling, and a lot of the problems, most of the problems, are from bad communication. People know how to express themselves, but they're not always aware of how the other person is going to receive it. And then when somebody says something to hold them accountable, they immediately get defensive and out of their hearts and not communicating anymore. So living in the now, in your authenticity and vulnerability, is important. So you can see the changing of the stories becomes really important, right? Increased empathy is important for the new world, for the new age. When I say empathy, I don't mean pity. I don't mean feeling sorry for. I guess that's okay sometimes, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that empathy, simply, I can put myself in your shoes. You can put yourself in my shoes. I could start understanding and feeling what it is that you feel. This helps us to get along better, because then I'm not only concerned with what I want and what I need, but I'm starting to have some empathy and some sense of what it is that you are and that you need. And that automatically makes relationship. So that's important. This other one is about opposites again. Like people like, I hear people or read about people that are talking about like, I'm part of the light and we are going to defeat the darkness. Really? Separates the light and the dark, Again, look at a given day we've got. Half the day light, half the day dark, approximately, depending on time of season. But that's normal. Darkness is not the enemy. The light's not the enemy. They're meant to be cooperative every day as we go from dark to light. And all opposites the same thing. But empathy is the point that I wanted to make. And you can't kill darkness, and you can't kill ego either, because a lot of people that are on the spiritual path, they get to a place inside where they say, I have to kill that ego. I have to get rid of that ego. I have to terminate the ego inside of me. And they get so frightened about their ego. And then they end up, not being a whole person anymore. No, your ego is necessary to a certain extent. It depends how much authority you give it. Your soul self, your spirit self. Some people call it a higher self. I don't like that because there's higher and lower in this. But let's say your soul self, your spirit self. That's what you want to be, in my estimation, want to be connected to, not your ego self. So you connect in this soul self, spirit self, which is the naturalness of who you are. And then from that place, you look for jobs for the ego to do, because the ego is your employee. Yes, sir. What do you want? Says the ego. That's where you need the ego. You need the ego in service to what your aims are in life. So if you want to put something beautiful out into the world, and you need to do marketing or selling or something that gets you out there, let your ego be in charge of that. Let your ego lead the way. You hold your better angels inside of you. You hold your spirit and soul. So this is such a big thing that most people aren't aware of. They really see it in black and white terms too. Like the light wins, the soul self wins, kill the ego, kill the darkness. No. Work with it. Work with what you feel is not the best part of you, the shadow part of you. Now, what are some ways, and I'm going to ask Deborah about this one when she comes on, but what are some ways that you can move from the old consciousness to the new, or to at least be solidly in the new consciousness? Meditate, that meditate. Yes, you know what? Meditate. Be in nature. Be in nature is a wonderful thing to do. And Deborah will talk more about this, but ritual ceremony are important. It can help us to be connected to the spirit soul part of life, to the universe, whatever your words are. We want to learn to have more of a social or a community consciousness too. That's part of this new age. Aquarius is about community. It's about individuality and being in something larger where we all become one. Diversity within unity. We'll have more to talk about with that with Deb coming up very shortly. And I want to talk some about a few more minutes just with me alone. I wrote in my last blog about sensitive degrees of the zodiac right now based on the eclipses that are here. So this eclipse is between 27 and 28 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio. And those are fixed signs. So if you've got any planets, especially your sun or moon, that sits in fixed signs toward the latter degrees of it, you'll likely be more affected than others with this first eclipse. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Those are the four fixed signs. 28 degrees, between 27 and 28 degrees. If we go back to that 2017, when we had the culture war seemingly beginning, that total solar eclipse was at 28 degrees of Leo. 28 degrees of Leo. This is very close to being a fixed sign, 28 degrees of Leo. And I think it's important to realize that there's so many different important players in the world that have something at that 28 degrees. Israel's Mars is exactly 28 plus degrees. North Korea's Saturn is at 28 plus degrees. Joe Biden's sun in Scorpio is at almost 28 degrees. Kamala Harris's Saturn is at 28 degrees of Aquarius. They're all connected. And I have a bunch more I don't want to really get into right this moment, but we have all sorts of people and countries that are at that 27, 28 degrees. So this eclipse touched off some of that. And then at the end of the year, what's going to happen is Jupiter is going to get up to that same degree again, and it's going to trigger. It's going to trigger that past eclipse and this eclipse that we're just passing now. And we also say that in Roswell, the eclipses were 27 plus degrees of Taurus and 27 plus and 12 plus degrees of Sagittarius, which is the second eclipse coming this year. Solar eclipse in Sagittarius, 12 plus degrees of Sagittarius. Come on. It's all meaningful. It's all meaningful. It's not only meaningful if you're like flying away flaky, it's meaningful in a grounded place. All these things are happening around that same degree. It's meaningful. And the culture war did get exacerbated on the eclipse date that we just had, when that man was found innocent. You know the ripples of what that's going to be like. You know it. Even if it's not immediate reaction, and there was riots in many cities around the country because of that. But it triggers something that began back in 2017. So let me just finish it up by going through the schedule of things that are happening for the rest of this year. And then Deb and I will do some talking, mostly her. So we had that eclipse on November 19th. Then on November 27th, Jupiter will make a semi-sextile that's 30-degree angle to Pluto. Jupiter from Aquarius, Pluto in Capricorn. And that'll be around 25 to 26 degrees of fixed signs. So it'll be triggered a bit then. Then if we go to December 3rd and 4th, important solar eclipse at 12 degrees, 21 minutes of Sagittarius, where everything is kind of like being worked on in a deep way. Some of it, I haven't been sleeping very well a couple of nights. Got difficulty moving through these energies. When the Sagittarius one comes away, it's more like resume. So whatever's been held back or wrestled with or worked out in process will be ready to launch as you get into that December 3rd, 4th time period. Does that mean that on December 3rd or 4th, you ought to get a ride, to outer space, like these other people do, be an astronaut, and really take off into something glorious? No, it just means that you're going to have a feeling that things have opened up, that you're being liberated, that your free spirit is getting stronger, and maybe there will be events that come with that, especially out in the world. On December 8th, 9th, Mars will square Jupiter at 26 degrees of fixed signs. That's pretty close to our trigger point again. On December 18th, Venus goes retrograde. And it'll be retrograde until it's retrograde. Oh, yes. Okay. And then shortly after that, Saturn squares Uranus. Its final pass, again in fixed signs. But now the fixed signs are like or they're at 11 degrees of fixed signs. So if you have anything in that area of the zodiac, you'll be more affected than others. But that'll be more like I'm not grinding it out or tugging of war inside. Even some foolish things will happen then, because Sagittarius can be rather impulsive or leaping before they look sometimes. So it doesn't mean everything that's going to go forward, it's going to be without some kind of something with it. But you got to know that you're going to feel good that things are freeing up then to a certain extent. And out in the world, things are going to free up. And those that weren't sure what direction to go in, they're going to be more set on direction at that time. Yeah, that's kind of important. Be more set with direction. And we'll see more direction after this eclipse season is done, which will be at the very end of this year. Eclipse season will be done. And we'll have more direction around COVID. We'll have more direction on the culture war, more direction on the world war, which unfortunately is something that's very, very possible, if not likely now. And we'll have direction and a stronger sense of where the stock market is and where it's going and where the economy is going. Okay. I think that's all I got to say today. We'll bring out, I hate when people say your better half, because no, she's not a half, she's a whole person, and I'm a whole person. So it's not half, better half or worse half. It's this whole human being, I hope, is going to bring on someone who's very close to me, my betrothed. Is that a word? Yes. Deborah's coming on right now. Ah, you made it.
Yes, of course. I'm right here. Hey, everybody.
Hold on a second, Deb. Say something. There you go. Okay. Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Very well. I'm sure everyone else can too.
Okay, good. Awesome.
So tell me, I know you're going to do a meditation today, aren't you? I hope. Guided meditation?
I will do a meditation at the end, yes, after we
talk. Good. Tell me what you think about the importance of meditation and nature, ritual ceremony. I know how you feel about that. Ritual and ceremony. Kind of give our listeners an idea of how you do these things during when times get more challenging, how they can use those things.
So all the time, those things are helpful. And I think especially during, really potent times on the earth between, like we are now in the 40-day period from 11/11 to the solstice and in between the eclipses, being in nature as much as you can, being really connecting in a deep way with the earth, with the cycles, can, bring you peace and calm, as can meditation. And then ceremonies are a way that you can call in energies and help that you need. It's like you set a sacred space and you call in energies like the angelic realm. You call in the Sisterhood of Light. You call in Magdalene or Yeshua, Christ. Whoever it is that you're working with or want to work with, you call them in and you bring in all the spiritual support, you call it in, and you set intentions. You know, each ceremony is different depending on which ceremony it is. But I mean, you can do simple ceremonies every day where you just acknowledge the sun rising and the moon setting, and sit before your altar. And having an altar is
Yeah.
another thing that's really important, because it's like you're designating a sacred place in your home. It can be small, it can be a little table, it can be on top of your dresser, it can be on the floor, but you're designating a space to be a sacred space for you to come and to commune with yourself, with your soul, to breathe, to connect, and to also connect with, whatever is on your altar. You might have a symbol of an animal or an angel or whatever it is that speaks to you spiritually. And it's this sacred space for you to sit at and meditate. And maybe there's a crystal there that you hold when you meditate that's very calming for you. Or you light a candle, or you light sage and you smudge yourself, or you anoint yourself with oils. All those things are ceremonial things that you can do, and sacred acts.
That help you stay connected both to yourself and to what's greater than you.
Yes.
I often talk about the age of Aquarius beginning, but sometimes you'll
Yes.
say New Earth. Tell me if there's any difference between New Earth and Aquarian Age, and how you see New Earth.
Okay. So that's a really good question. And how I'd answer it is, yes, it's true. We are in the Aquarian age now. That period of time is at 2150 years or so. We're in the Aquarian age, but we're also, according to many, many prophecies and timekeepers and cycle keepers, that we're actually entering something even bigger than that. Like, not that that's not significant because we're shifting ages, but there's even a larger shift that's, you could say, into a golden age,
Is that
or
greater than
into the
2,160
new
years
earth.
then? Too? Is that
Yeah,
more years?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it's possible, yes. And that we're moving into a new earth. So a new earth, I mean, many people believe that the old earth, just like we are going through transformation, and the old world is dying and being shed, dismantled, deconstructed, there's a new earth, or that Gaia, Mother Earth, is actually moving. She's also going through a transformation into a new dimension, as we're going through a transformation. We're not separate from the earth. So that's like the birthing of the new earth. And what I've been feeling a lot lately is actually birthing the new earth is actually within us, because it's birthing that new consciousness of the new earth, which is the values of the Aquarian age, but even beyond the Aquarian age. It's those values, where is love and truth are the most important thing, and learning to live and beginning to live by universal laws rather than the kinds of governments we have that aren't really run by spirit.
Well, those are
And
very
it's
age
like
of those are very age of Aquarius. Truth and love, and those connections you're talking about. That is Aquarian age too.
yes. But it's also, the golden age where, we're aware of our, divinity, our God, goddess self. And, I think the new earth is all the things that we dream of when we think of having a new world, a new earth that is filled with compassion and cooperation and sacred community and living in harmony with the earth and respecting each other and the earth, and releasing greed and making sure that all life and all beings are supported and loved and cared for, and living in that new frequency of love and compassion and grace and equality and all those things. So to me, that's what the new earth is. It's within us. It's when we change and shift our own consciousness inside, and we start embracing and embodying those energies, those universal laws.
I think what's
Those
important from what I've heard from you before too is and you're saying it now, but I think usually you have even a stronger emphasis on actually the connection with the earth, because we have messed up the earth so much, taken her for granted, defiled her. And even when we think about, even when I talk about the new age, I'll talk about things that are very cosmic at times too, and higher principles, as you were saying too, that we believe in. But how about just connection with good old Mother Earth? Tell us more about that.
So connecting with our Mother Earth is so crucial, and listening to her, having that connection and relationship with her, and feeling that oneness, that we actually, the earth and we are connected as we're in our physical bodies. And what we do, just like the Earth Mother's Cry, the video that we showed last week or the week before here in Sedona, that our circle brought through as a transmission from Mother Earth, is that she says, what you do to me, you do to yourself.
Hmm.
What you do to yourself, you do to me.
Hmm.
So all the things that are going on our earth, the rape, the pillaging, whatever's going on the earth that's harming humanity, animals, any form of life, is also, it's harming Mother Earth, it's harming us. So, because we're not separate, that saying that actually Christ said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. And that's true with the earth. It's like, what we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. What we do to ourselves, we do to the earth.
Hmm.
So again, it comes to, honoring our sacred responsibility as caretakers of each other and Mother Earth and ourselves, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So as we go through these times now, there are more and more challenges that we're going to be facing, along with all the beauty of the birth. We got the labor pains that are coming with the birth, right? How would you advise someone? You've kind of touched on it, but let's say I'm really scared to death. When I start seeing military with their rifles and their guns and their tanks, and I've got kids, and I'm getting really scared. What do you advise that I do?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to remember that everything that occurs is part of the changing of the ages. It's the old world, the old ways of being, like our military presence. That's the old world, and we have to live in the new vibration. We have to carry that vibration and within us. And I don't know if we're faced with something that drastic. That's a really hard thing, to
Yes,
deal with. If there's a culture war or whatever, we have to do the most we can to stay out of the war,
exactly.
to not engage, and like you were talking about earlier, to not separate as us versus them.
Yeah, yeah,
We can't fight. We can't create more war. So if whatever comes before us, maybe what comes to the earth is going to be something that it's for a higher purpose, to bring us
yes,
together in community. I mean,
exactly.
maybe we'll start living in communities together, or in the communities we already live in, we're going to start taking care of each other more.
Yes,
And
yes.
we have to see the higher purpose
I agree.
in whatever it is that comes our way.
During,
Just
during
like,
during World War II and the Depression, people did exactly what you're saying, right?
right. My grandparents had another family come and live with them. They were new immigrants to America from England. And, and, a lot of women started creating things then. And because men were off at war. And I mean, anything, that saying, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
there's some truth in that, and holding a higher perspective and knowing that this too shall pass. There's always cycles. There's darkness and there's light. There's the dawn that comes, there's spring that comes after winter. And that's where, being attuned to nature and the cycles of nature is helpful, because Mother Earth teaches us that there's always cycles within cycles.
Yes.
And that nothing stays the same. And, everything changes constantly.
Ceremony helps a lot with that, doesn't it? Because it helps you get in touch with the different cycles and the connections and things like that.
Yes, and to honor the sacredness of every moment. That's really what ceremony is. It's honoring the sacred moment, whether it's a new moon, a full moon, a rite of passage in your life, like starting a new job or work, or having a baby, or a being that's passing away. Whatever it is, it's honoring the sacredness of that.
Is there like a ritual or a ceremony I can do? Let's say that I just went through a divorce or something like that, or lost a job, things like that. Are there certain kind of like rituals that like someone like you could help me with if something like that happened in my life?
Yeah, definitely. And I can help people create a ceremony for themselves, or I can actually facilitate a ceremony. But yes, and it's really all about looking at it from the bigger picture, whatever that transition is. Like, let's say it's the ending of a relationship.
Yes.
You go through a ceremony where you honor all the gifts that you received, and you see what it is you're letting go of, not necessarily about that person specifically, but patterns in yourself, because everything is a reflection of us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, looking deeper at that, whatever that passage is, and the sacredness of it, and honoring that, and setting new intentions. A lot of ceremonies are doing big releases, like burning something or burying something, and then bringing in the new energies, the new intentions for your new life. Or the ceremony could be grieving and making a sacred object that holds your grief, and then giving it to the water or burying it in the earth. And so that's how ceremony helps. It's ceremonializing symbolically what you're going through. And I'll tell you, when you call in the energies, the spiritual energies and the energies of Mother Earth, it's powerful.
Yes.
Because when you're doing your prayers and your intentions, you're speaking into the unified field, the quantum field of oneness, of that web of life that ripples out. And it's powerful, it's profound. It's like you're marking something.
I like that. You're doing some things now about ceremonies you're talking to people about, and you're doing a blessing every day for 40 days. People, if they want to get a hold of you and get involved in some of these things, or even you help them with a personal ritual, the relationship's ending and you help them to go through. How can people get a hold of you? Is that what you truly do? Oh, I know it is.
Yes, I do. So anyone can reach me at Elelia, which is Elia, which is my spiritual name, at Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. If you forget that email, you can just go to Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com, and you can find a way to reach me there. And I talk about ceremonies on my website. And I talk about that on my website. So you can
people still get involved? Can people still get involved with what you're doing on these blessings and ceremonies?
So I started the 40 days of blessings from the heart of the goddess on the portal of 11/11 through the winter solstice of December 21st. But I'm also doing ceremonies at all the major points. We've had 2 ceremonies already at 11/11 and at this just past full moon lunar eclipse. And the next ceremony is on December 3rd right, I think right before the,
Yeah.
right at
Right at.
the
Yes.
moon, the new moon eclipse.
Yes.
And then the next passage we're going to do together, or ceremony, is at 12:12, which is another gateway, and it's also
Mm.
Virgin de Guadalupe Day, which is in honor of Mother Mary.
Mm.
And then the next one is the full moon of Gemini. And then the next one is the winter solstice ceremony. So there's 4 more ceremonies that anyone can join at any time.
Mars goes into Sagittarius around that one date. Mars goes into Sagittarius on the 13th of December. Did you say there was something on the 12th that you were doing?
On the 12th of December is when it's 12/12,
Right,
and it's
right.
Virgin de Guadalupe Day. And also, I think it's very significant that Venus is going to be retrograde, which means we're ending a whole lunar cycle of 18, 19 months.
Yeah, that's right.
Getting ready to start a whole new cycle of Venus. So that's also really significant during that time.
Did I mention the date of that? That it goes retrograde on the December 18th, and it goes back direct on January 29th.
Exactly.
So that'll be a time to look
So-
over your relationships and the old relationships patterns. Yeah,
Yes. I know we only have a couple minutes left.
Mhm.
So we can't do a long meditation, but if you want,
yes,
if
yes,
you
please.
want, I can play the crystal singing bowl and just
Perfect.
bring people into a deeper place.
Oh, perfect.
And to just remind everyone that you are sacred, you're a sacred being, that you're a divine being. And to just take a moment to feel your divine essence, the essence of your soul. And just remembering that you are always connected. That the earth is there supporting you energetically. And you can feel this connection by just pausing and going within to your sacred breath. Honoring your sacred breath as the air, the sacred breath of life. Honoring the sacred waters of the earth and your emotional body. Honoring the sacred fire that is the fire within your heart of your passion and compassion. And the earth, your body, and just knowing that you're a sacred temple. Just as the earth is a sacred temple. And your heart is also a sacred temple. And it's really so simple when you just breathe inside and feel that connection to the earth, the universe, the stars, the planets, and to your own soul essence within, in your heart center. And I leave you with that now because I know we need to stop for today.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very nice. If anyone wants to get a hold of me also, please contact me at Solus, SOULUS, at AOL.com for doing readings, when the radio shows, and all that stuff. Take care, everyone. We love you. And we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Lots of love to everyone. Bye.
Bye.